Is he on the hot seat? Kyle Shanahan. Emmanuel Acho, who's been in the news a little bit recently, made an argument that he is on the hot seat, saying basically this Nick Sorensen episode was a complete debacle, that you fired a defensive coordinator, Steve Wilks, and tried to get an improvement and went from the third fewest points allowed to the fourth most in one season. And the only reason they promoted Nick Sorensen in the first place is because they like him as a person. He's friends with Kyle Shanahan. So, I mean, no other team would have hired Nick Sorensen to be their defensive coordinator. Only the Niners would have done that. And you knew it was a shaky move when they had to hire Brandon Staley just to be like the training wheels, just in case. So the fact that you just threw away a season because you made a defensive coordinator pick that was ridiculous seems to put some pressure on him. He just had to fire 2 coordinators. And I think from afar, anytime you look at a team whose head coach just fires multiple coordinators in an offseason, you're thinking, geez, he's next. If there was an offensive coordinator, as Emmanuel Acho said, they would have had to fire him too. What was interesting is they just promoted Clay Kubiak to offensive coordinator, as if the offense was so great this year that someone deserved a promotion. Like, if Clay Kubiak had been the offensive coordinator all season, you could argue they should have fired him too. So things aren't great right now. And I hear people say that he shouldn't be on the hot seat because he's been to 2 Super Bowls. Other guys who've lost Super Bowls have gotten fired. I was looking through the last 10 head coaches to lose Super Bowls. What happened to him? Remember John Fox? John Fox went to the Super Bowl with Carolina, lost to Brady. Then about 10 years later, went to the Super Bowl with Denver and lost with Peyton Manning. So that's 2 Super Bowl appearances, one with 2 different franchises. Pretty impressive. Built up some really good defenses along the way. Next year, after losing the Super Bowl with Peyton, they go to the playoffs again, but they lose. And then John Elway and the Broncos decide, you know what, John, you've had a lot of success. You've been to 2 Super Bowls, but you just can't get us over the hump. So we're firing you, and we're replacing you with Gary Kubiak. And the very next season, they win a Super Bowl. So there's precedent of bold organizations making bold decisions if they feel their coach can't win a Super Bowl. And I think the Niners aren't one of those bold organizations, clearly. They want to be in the mix. Kyle Shanahan wants to be in the mix. But 6-11 isn't in the mix. They'll take 12-4 in the playoffs every year, 12-5. But 6-11, no playoffs, that's not going to cut it. So I also want to know, what do you think of this press conference? Like, when Kyle Shanahan was pressed about the season, he was like, well, I think we really should have been a playoff team this year. And you go back to the first game against Arizona, the first game against the Rams, the last game against the Seahawks. I thought we should have won those games. It's like, okay, yeah, you probably should have won those games, but you didn't. You found ways to lose them. And even if you had won them, you would have been 9-8. You still wouldn't have made the playoffs. So I don't know. Does he really think he needs to change that much, or does he just think that they were a couple of plays away from making the playoffs and they had some injuries and, they couldn't get the defensive coordinator they wanted and now they're going to get one? I mean, does he think he's on the hot seat, or does he think he's got everything under control? I don't know. I get the feeling that Jed York really likes Kyle and would like to keep him forever. But I wonder what the dad thinks. Because Kyle's a lot younger than the dad. Kyle's, he's a little rough around the edges. I wonder what someone in their 70s would think of Kyle Shanahan.